The rain didn't just fall over Seattle that night. It pressed against the windows of Luca's hearth like a restless heartbeat, streaking the glass in silver lines. Inside, the restaurant glowed with soft amber lights, the kind that usually made the world feel warmer. But for Evan Mercer, the warmth stayed on the other side of the window. He checked his phone again. 9:47 p.m. No message, no missed call, no sign of Rebecca, the blind date his childhood friend insisted would restore his faith in destiny. Destiny, it seemed, had other plans. Evan exhaled slowly, rubbing a hand over the back of his neck. 90 minutes. That's how long he had been sitting there, pretending he didn't notice the sympathetic glances from a few servers, pretending he didn't feel foolish for believing tonight could be different from the previous 5 disasters. He flipped the phone face down and pushed it away. Maybe he shouldn't have come. Maybe he should have gone home, ordered takeout, and watched another documentary until he fell asleep on the couch, like every other night. A soft voice broke the spiral. You know, if you stare at that phone any harder, it might file a complaint. Evan looked up. A waitress stood beside his table, her hair tied in a messy knot, a pair of snowflake earrings swaying as she tilted her head. Her apron was dusted with flour, and her eyes sparkled like she carried an entire constellation behind them. She smiled, playful, bright, warm. "Sorry," she said. "I don't mean to interrupt your intense meditation, but I figured somebody should check if you're still conscious." Evan blinked, caught off guard. "I'm fine. Just waiting for someone." "A ghost?" she asked dramatically. "Because if it's a regular person, they're running very late." He tried and failed not to smile. "Blind date," she let out a sympathetic gasp. "Ah, a mystery date who didn't solve the mystery of showing up. Brutal." Evan shook his head. "It's not that bad." "Really?" She folded her arms. "Because I've watched you adjust that napkin at least 10 times, and you keep checking the entrance like you're expecting someone to burst in with a marching band apologizing for her tardiness." He stared at her. "You've been watching me?" "I prefer the word observing," she corrected. "It sounds more scientific. I take my job very seriously." He laughed softly despite himself. Something in her energy, unfiltered, genuine, dislodged a little of the heaviness pressing on him. She stuck out a hand. "I'm Jenna, and this table is currently under my jurisdiction." Evan shook her hand. Hers was warm. His felt cold in comparison. "Evan." "Nice to meet you, Evan, who's definitely been stood up." He sighed. "She might still show." Jenna looked at the empty chair, then back at him. "She's not showing." "That confident, huh?" "I've worked here 4 years. I can spot hopes that need rescuing from across the room." Her earrings jingled lightly when she leaned closer. "Want me to tell you what probably happened?" "No," he said, amused. "But you're going to anyway." "Of course." She lowered her voice conspiratorially. Scenario 1, she forgot. Unlikely. Scenario 2, she chickened out. Maybe. Scenario 3, she saw the rain and decided Netflix sounded more romantic. Evan chuckled. "That's depressing." "It is. So, let me give you a more uplifting scenario." She tapped the table twice as if announcing a secret. Scenario 4. The universe sent her the wrong way so you could meet someone who actually shows up. Evan held her gaze. The restaurant buzzed softly around them. Clinking forks, muffled conversations, the hum of the espresso machine, but her presence made everything else fade slightly. "You're good at cheering people up," he said. "That's my superpower," she replied. "Some people juggle, some people bake. I rescue strangers from bad nights." Evan looked toward the window. The rain was still relentless. "It's been 5 terrible dates," he admitted. "This was supposed to be the one that finally worked." Jenna's expression softened. 5 bad dates in 2 weeks? That's not dating. That's a cry for help." "It's been rough," he confessed. "And yet," she said, stepping back with her hands on her hips, "here you are, not giving up. That's something." He shook his head, embarrassed. "Don't give me too much credit." "Fine, but at least let me give you a warm meal. On the house? No, don't look like that. On my personal kindness budget." "That's not necessary." "It is," she insisted. "People shouldn't walk out of this place feeling worse than when they walked in. My unofficial rule." Evan hesitated, then nodded. Jenna brightened like someone had turned on a light inside her. "Great. I'll bring something that doesn't require you to commit emotionally. Be right back." She turned, nearly collided with a passing server, whispered, "Sorry, almost got caught by gravity again, and disappeared toward the kitchen. Evan found himself smiling at nothing. When was the last time someone talked to him like that? Open, unfiltered, not tiptoeing around his status or his name? He rubbed his temples, suddenly aware of how tired he truly was. The constant meetings, the pressure, the loneliness he kept pretending didn't exist, and now another failed attempt at connection. But before the familiar weight could settle in again, Jenna returned with a plate of warm bread, steam rising gently. "There," she said, placing it down. "This is bread with healing properties. Scientifically unproven, but spiritually accurate." He laughed again. The third time in 10 minutes. She glanced at him, noticing the shift in his shoulders, the slight easing of his eyes. "See," she said softly, "not all nights are ruined nights." He met her gaze, and for a brief second, something unexpected flickered between them, something neither of them named, but both felt. Then Jenna tapped the table twice. "Okay, I'm on patrol, but if your mood drops below 60%, you call me. I respond to emotional emergencies." She pointed to herself sternly, then grinned. Evan watched her walk away, her snowflake earrings chiming faintly with each step. And for the first time that night, the rain outside didn't look quite so bleak. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the night everything went wrong. Maybe it was the night everything quietly shifted. Jenna didn't return right away. Evan assumed she was busy, or maybe that little burst of light she'd brought to his table had been nothing more than a passing spark. But only a few minutes later, she appeared again, this time carrying a small bowl of tomato basil soup and a mischievous look in her eyes. "Emergency delivery," she announced. "Your emotional temperature dropped to 58%. I take these things seriously." Evan raised an eyebrow. "You're tracking my emotional temperature now?" "Of course," she said. "It's part of my job as a one-woman rescue squad." She set the soup down with a flourish. The steam curled between them, carrying the aroma of basil and roasted tomatoes. He smiled. "What's the soup for?" "Comfort," she said. "Plus, I needed an excuse to come back and tell you about the strangest customer I had today." He leaned back. "Strangest? That's a bold claim." "Oh, you have no idea." Jenna pulled out the chair beside him without asking and sat down, folding her arms on the table. "Picture this. Lunchtime rush, every server running around like headless chickens, and suddenly, boom, this guy walks in wearing ski goggles." "Ski goggles?" Evan repeated, disbelieving. "Yes, indoors, in Seattle, not exactly the Alps." He snorted. "Why?" He said they helped him connect with his inner focus. Jenna grabbed an invisible pair of goggles and mimicked sliding them on. Then he ordered spaghetti and tried to eat it without removing the goggles. Every time the fork came close, he'd bump into the frame and the pasta would bounce back onto the plate like a slingshot. Evan laughed. Actually laughed. It startled him. The sound felt unfamiliar coming from his own chest. Jenna brightened instantly. "See, there it is. Actual joy. I should get a raise." He shook his head, chuckling. "Sounds like you've had quite a day." "Oh, it gets better. After the pasta mess, he insisted on tipping me in coupons." "Coupons," Evan repeated. "Yes, for a hardware store, because apparently I look like someone who appreciates practical gifts." Evan pressed a hand over his mouth, laughing again. "Do you?" "I mean, I do love a good screwdriver set," she admitted dramatically. But still, he was still smiling when she softened her tone and studied him for a quiet second. "You know," she said lightly, "you don't look like someone who deserved to be left alone tonight." The comment was gentle, not pitying, just true. Evan ran a thumb along the rim of his glass. "Maybe I was expecting too much." "No," she said. "You expected basic human decency. That's not too much." He didn't reply immediately. He wasn't used to this. Someone blunt, straightforward, but kind. Most people danced around his feelings, trying to impress him or keep things pleasant. Jenna simply saw what was there. She leaned forward again, chin resting on her hand. "Can I try something?" "That depends," he said warily. "Is it another emotional temperature test?" "Better." She pointed at him with her pen. "I'm going to guess exactly what kind of person gives someone the slip on a blind date." Evan laughed under his breath. "All right, impress me." Jenna cleared her throat dramatically. "First of all, the serial stander-upper is usually overconfident, like too many inspirational quotes taped to the bathroom mirror." Evan blinked. "Inspirational quotes?" Oh, definitely. Stuff like, I attract greatness, or be the energy you want to receive. Ironically, they send out terrible energy. He laughed again. Okay, continue. Number 2, she continued, lifting a finger. They always have a favorite latte that sounds like a secret code. Lavender oat foam, extra syrup, half wish on a star kind of thing. He shook his head. That's oddly specific. I've worked in restaurants long enough to have a sixth sense. And number 3, she narrowed her eyes knowingly. They never arrive on time for anything because in their head, they're the main character in a movie where the rest of us are apparently extras. Evan burst out laughing, loud enough that a couple at a nearby table glanced over. Jenna's smile turned warm. There, my job here is done. The laughter faded, but the ease remained. For the first time in 2 weeks, Evan didn't feel like he was performing. He didn't feel like he was trying to make a good impression or forcing small talk. He was simply talking to someone who genuinely cared enough to stay and make him laugh. Can I tell you something? He said quietly. Jenna straightened. Always. I've had a pretty rough streak lately, he admitted. And I don't just mean dates. Work's been heavy, life's been loud. I don't usually sit around waiting for someone this long, but tonight I thought, I don't know, maybe something good would finally happen. And something good did, she said without hesitation. He blinked. What? You laughed. Twice. She held up 2 fingers, which is impressive considering you walked in with a storm cloud floating above you. Evan breathed in slowly. He didn't want to admit it aloud, but she was right. Something had shifted, just a fraction, but enough. Jenna gently nudged the bowl toward him. Eat your soup before it turns into cold tomato sadness. He took the spoon and smiled. Is that the official culinary term? Absolutely. I invent them as I go. He tasted the soup. Warm, bright, reassuring. Jenna rested her chin on her hand again. Can I give you one last piece of wisdom for the night? Is it about ski goggles? No, she said with a small smile. It's about you. He looked up, stunned by the sudden softness in her voice. Don't let someone who didn't bother to show up decide how the rest of your night feels, she said. Because people who care, they show up, and you deserve the kind who do. Evan swallowed, not the soup, but the unexpected weight of her words. For a moment, all he could do was hold her gaze. Her eyes weren't pitying. They weren't romantic either. They were simply honest. And that honesty hit him deeper than anything he'd felt in weeks. Thank you, he said quietly. You're welcome, she replied. And don't worry, I'll be back in a bit to check your emotional temperature again. Can't have it plummeting to dangerous levels. She stood up, scanned his face one more time, then walked away, her snowflake earrings chiming with each step. Evan watched her go, the warm glow from the overhead lights reflecting off the wooden table. Something loosened in his chest, just a little, just enough. The rain outside didn't stop. But inside Luca's hearth, for the first time in days, Evan felt something close to lightness. The rain softened outside, but inside Luca's hearth, the warmth seemed to gather entirely around Evan's table. Even after Jenna stepped away to check on other customers, something remained in the air. A quiet shift, the kind you notice only because everything suddenly feels a little less heavy. A few minutes later, Jenna returned balancing a small plate of toasted bread drizzled with olive oil and sprinkled with rosemary. Special delivery, she announced. This is from our top secret menu, the one reserved for people having a rough night. Evan smiled. Let me guess. This is part of your emotional temperature program. Correct. She set the plate down proudly. Tonight's category is called restorative carbs. Side effect, mild optimism. He laughed under his breath. You really enjoy making people feel better, don't you? Someone has to, she said. Besides, crumbs make less of a mess than sad feelings. She pulled out the chair again, this time with even more confidence, and sat beside him. Not too close, but close enough that the glow from the overhead lamp stretched across both of them. Close enough that Evan felt, for the first time in a long while, like he wasn't the only one carrying his thoughts. He took a piece of bread, breaking it gently. I haven't laughed like this in weeks. Good, she said. The world is already too serious. People forget they're allowed to breathe. He hesitated, then said, I've had a streak of terrible dates. Define terrible, like awkward silence terrible, or surprise monologue about exes terrible? Worse, Evan said. One woman spent the entire dinner recording videos for her followers. Another brought her dog and let him sit on the table. He paused. And last week, someone tried to sell me a wellness subscription. Jenna slammed a hand on the table softly. No. Yes. During a date? During the appetizer, she groaned dramatically. Okay, that's criminal. Evan felt his chest loosen when she said that. Not because she made fun of the women. She didn't. Instead, she made the situation feel human, real, something he could actually talk about without feeling foolish. And Rebecca? Jenna asked gently. Was she supposed to be different? I hoped so, he admitted. My friend said we'd get along, but she didn't text, didn't call, nothing. That stings, Jenna murmured. Even if you tell yourself it shouldn't. He nodded quietly. Jenna wasn't teasing now. She wasn't laughing. She wasn't offering sarcastic commentary. She was just there, listening, with that kind of attention that made Evan feel seen in a way he hadn't felt in months. She leaned her elbows on the table. You know, people rarely think about what their silence does to others. But you showed up. You were willing. That already tells me you've got more heart than you give yourself credit for. Evan blinked, caught off guard by the honesty of it. You barely know me, he said. Doesn't change what's true. She shrugged lightly. I'm a good reader of people. Occupational hazard. He smiled at that. So, what am I, in your expert opinion? She studied him dramatically. You're someone who tries, even when things are discouraging. Someone who doesn't hide the fact that he's hurting a little. And someone who thinks showing up is still worth it. Evan looked at her, really looked at her. You're strangely good at this. I know, she said proudly. I've learned from the best, my mom. She used to tell me, if you see someone carrying a storm on their shoulders, at least offer them an umbrella. He chuckled. Is that what you're doing? Maybe. Or maybe, she said, leaning back with a grin. I'm planning something far more daring. He raised an eyebrow. Should I be concerned? Yes, she said, but in a good way. She reached into the pocket of her apron and pulled out a pen. Then she looked around until she spotted a clean white napkin in the corner of the table. She dragged it toward her, smoothing it with her palm. What are you doing? Evan asked. Making sure you don't spend tomorrow night alone. He looked at her, completely lost. Tomorrow? Yeah, the night before Christmas Eve. My family has this tradition. We do a little dinner before the madness begins. Nothing fancy, just some cooking, some laughing, some arguing about whose turn it is to wash dishes. She paused, then said lightly, I think you should come. Evan froze. It wasn't that the invitation felt inappropriate. It wasn't even too sudden. It was unexpected. No one invited strangers to their family's pre-holiday dinner. No one invited someone they met 2 hours ago. And yet, Jenna said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. You're serious? He managed. Yes. She tapped the napkin with her pen. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock, come hungry. I don't want to impose. You won't, she cut in. My family is pretty chill, except my brother who lives on video games, my mom who narrates everything she does, and our cat who judges everyone equally. But overall, chill. Evan felt an unfamiliar sensation rising in his chest, something between disbelief and warmth. I've never done anything like that, he admitted. Going to someone's house like this. Then it's a good time to start, she said simply. New experiences build new memories. He stared at her for a long moment. Her face was completely open, no hidden agenda, no expectation beyond the simple desire to make someone else's night a little better. Why me? He asked quietly. Jenna looked at him as if the answer were obvious. Because nobody should feel alone the night before a holiday, and because you showed up tonight even when things weren't going your way. She paused. That tells me a lot about who you are. The words hit deeper than she probably intended. Slowly, Evan nodded. Okay, I'll come. Jenna's smile spread slowly, starting in her eyes before reaching her lips. Good. I'll text my mom to set out an extra plate. She flipped the napkin over and began writing, her handwriting looping gracefully across the surface. Here, she said when she finished. My address. Don't worry if you get lost. Our porch light flickers like it's telling ghost stories, so you'll know it's the right house. Evan took the napkin carefully. Her name, her street, a tiny doodle of a star beside it. Something inside him shifted. Something quiet but real. For the first time in a long time, tomorrow didn't feel like an empty space on the calendar. It felt like a possibility. By the time Evan turned onto Jenna's street the next evening, the sky had dimmed into a soft winter blue. Snow clung to the edges of rooftops, and the cold air smelled faintly of pine. Every house was decorated with strings of lights and inflatable snowmen, but one house stood out. Not because it was the brightest, but because its lights flickered softly, as if someone had hung each bulb with careful, loving hands. Number 27. The porch light blinked in a slow, uneven rhythm, exactly the way Jenna had described it. As Evan walked up the short path, the scent of something warm and sweet drifted toward him. Cinnamon? Fresh waffles? He wasn't sure, but whatever it was, it felt like stepping into childhood. A childhood he suddenly realized he missed. He knocked gently. The door swung open almost immediately. "Hi!" Jenna beamed from the doorway, her hair loosely tied, a flour smudge on her cheek. "You made it." "Wouldn't miss it," Evan said. "Good. Come on in. Just don't let Pumpkin escape. He thinks the outside world is his destiny." Before Evan could ask who Pumpkin was, a large orange cat strutted into view, staring at Evan like he was an intruder attempting a hostile takeover. "This must be Pumpkin," Evan guessed. Jenna scooped the cat up before he could make a run for it. "This is His Majesty, ruler of chaos. Don't take it personally if he ignores you. It's kind of his personality." Pumpkin let out a small, offended meow and flicked his tail in Evan's direction. The warmth inside the house hit him immediately. Strings of lights draped across the ceiling, handmade ornaments dangled from doorknobs, and the living room smelled like a blend of roasted chicken, cinnamon, and something buttery. A woman popped her head out from the kitchen doorway. "You must be Evan," she said. "I'm Nora, Jenna's mom. Come in, sweetheart." Sweetheart. No one had called him that since he'd left for college. "Nice to meet you, Nora." She wiped her hands on her apron, then gave him a hug so swift and genuine he didn't have time to tense up. "Dinner's almost ready. I made way too much food, but that's how we show affection in this house." "Mom's love language is calories," Jenna whispered loudly. "I heard that," Nora shot back. "And it's true," a shout erupted from the living room. "Jenna, the boss is unbeatable. He literally cheats." A boy around 18 sat on the couch, headset askew, controller clutched like a lifeline. His fingers flew so fast across the buttons, it was a blur. "That," Jenna said, "is Caleb, my brother. He is, as you can see, deeply committed to his craft." Without looking away from the TV, Caleb yelled, "Hi, Evan. Sorry, can't talk. Fighting for my life here." Jenna leaned toward Evan with a whisper. This is him being polite. He laughed softly. The house was chaos, but gentle chaos. The kind that swirled around him, warm and comforting in a way he hadn't felt in a very long time. "Dinner's ready," Nora called a moment later. The dining table was small, slightly scratched, and absolutely overflowing. Roasted chicken in the center, mashed potatoes, greens, homemade biscuits, and a small mountain of cookies. Caleb ripped off his headset and plopped into the chair across from Evan. "Okay, I'm here, and starving." "Did you wash your hands?" Nora asked. Caleb froze. "My hands have never been cleaner." "That means he didn't," Jenna whispered. Dinner began with laughter. Nora talked as if she'd known Evan forever, asking about his job, his hobbies, whether he liked board games. Caleb interrupted every third sentence with a random fact or complaint about a video game villain. Pumpkin sat beneath the table, tapping people's ankles when he wanted attention. Jenna was different here. She wasn't performing. She wasn't trying to make people laugh. She simply belonged. She teased her brother with a playful shove. She passed plates with practiced ease. She gently corrected her mom when she mispronounced a dish she found online. She moved through the small space like a heartbeat, steady, familiar, grounding. Evan couldn't take his eyes off her. At one point, Caleb started arguing with Nora about whose turn it was to clean the bathroom this week. "It's literally not my turn," Caleb insisted. "You just want me to suffer." Nora crossed her arms. "Young man, do you even know what suffering is?" "Yes, it's cleaning the bathtub." "Caleb," Jenna groaned. "What? I'm being honest." Evan found himself laughing harder than he had in years. Everything was so unfiltered, so real. No polished silverware, no hushed conversations, no pretense, just life, loud and warm and imperfect. Halfway through dessert, Nora leaned toward Evan with a teasing smile. "So, tell me, how did you end up meeting my daughter? And what made you brave enough to come here tonight?" Evan nearly choked on a cookie. Jenna smacked her forehead. Mom, please. What? I'm making conversation. Evan cleared his throat. We met at the restaurant. She helped me through a bad night. Nora's smile softened. That sounds like her. She always tries to brighten someone's day. Jenna looked down at her plate, suddenly shy. Mom? It's true, Nora insisted. Ever since she was little, she'd run around trying to comfort everyone, even strangers. Jenna groaned. Can we not tell my entire life story during dinner? Caleb chimed in. You should tell him about the time she tried to give first aid to a snowman. Jenna slapped his arm. Caleb! Evan laughed so hard his sides hurt. After dinner, they played a guessing game. Nora acted out scenes dramatically. Caleb guessed wrong on purpose to irritate her. Jenna laughed until tears formed in the corners of her eyes. At one point, Evan realized he wasn't just watching the game. He was part of it. Jenna handed him a card. Your turn. I'm terrible at charades, he warned. That's okay, she said. We're terrible at guessing. The room erupted with cheering as he acted out a ridiculous scene that looked more like interpretive dance. Caleb guessed flying squirrel, which was wildly incorrect, but everyone applauded anyway. Time blurred. Warmth settled into his chest. He looked around the table, at Nora smiling proudly, at Caleb poking Pumpkin with a feather toy, at Jenna laughing so hard she had to wipe her eyes, and something inside him shifted. For the first time in what felt like years, he felt home. Not in a literal sense, but in that deep, quiet way a person feels when they are seen, welcomed, and allowed to just exist without expectation. When the evening wound down, and Evan stood by the door putting on his coat, Jenna walked him out. So, she asked softly, was tonight weird or good weird? Good weird, Evan said. Very good. I'm glad you came. Me too. She smiled, brushing flour from her cheek. Tomorrow's the real holiday. Tonight was the warm-up. Evan paused before stepping into the cold air. Thanks for sharing your world with me. It's messy, she said. It's beautiful, he replied. Her cheeks flushed, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Then Pumpkin meowed loudly behind them, as if demanding the moment end. Jenna laughed. We should let the king of the house pass. Evan stepped aside for the cat and whispered, Good night, Jenna. Good night, Evan. As he walked down the path toward his car, he realized something surprising. For the first time in years, he wasn't returning to an empty night. He was carrying warmth with him. The night air outside Jenna's house was crisp, the kind that carried the faint smell of wet pine and distant chimney smoke. Evan stepped onto the porch, letting the warmth of the evening settle inside him like a lingering echo. As he buttoned his coat, Jenna appeared again, this time holding a steaming paper cup wrapped in a knitted sleeve. Wait, she said. You can't leave without this. He raised an eyebrow. What is it? Cocoa, she said, placing it gently into his hands. Homemade, extra cinnamon. It's tradition that guests leave with something warm. Consider it my way of saying, take a piece of tonight with you. He looked down at the cup, then back at her. Thank you. Don't drink it too fast, she warned. It's so hot it might file a lawsuit. He laughed softly. Something about the way she hovered in the doorway, equal parts gentle and chaotic, made the moment feel strangely delicate. Jenna leaned against the frame. Drive safe, okay? And text me when you get home. He nodded, surprised at how natural it felt that she asked. I will. As he walked toward his car, Pumpkin appeared behind her, tail flicking with judgment. Jenna waved at Evan with both hands, the porch light flickering above her like it was trying to wave too. The drive back to Seattle was silent but warm. The cocoa radiated heat into his palms. His chest felt oddly full, like something unnamed had taken root. Halfway home, he took a sip. Sweet, comforting, a little messy, just like Jenna. Inside his apartment, the world shifted back to quiet. No string lights, no noisy teenager complaining about a video game boss. No clatter of dishes or Nora's enthusiastic commentary, but somehow, it didn't feel as empty as usual. Evan pulled out his phone and typed 2 words, made it. He hesitated, then hit send. A reply came almost instantly. Good. I was pacing like a nervous squirrel. Jenna! Evan blinked. A squirrel? He typed back. Were you really pacing? 3 dots appeared. Then, okay, maybe not pacing, but definitely doing anxious interpretive dance in the kitchen. Don't judge me. He laughed, alone in his apartment, but feeling far from lonely. Why anxious? He wrote. Because, came her reply, I wasn't sure if tonight would feel weird for you. Our house is loud and small and chaotic, and I worried maybe you wouldn't feel comfortable. Evan leaned against the counter, still holding the warm cocoa. It was perfect, he texted. Better than anything I've had in a long time. 3 dots appeared again, then disappeared, then reappeared, like she was typing and deleting, unsure of how much to say. Then finally, I'm really glad you came. Something tugged gently at his chest. Me too, he wrote. A few minutes passed. Evan walked to the window, staring out at the soft drizzle falling over the city. The street lamps haloed the rain in a quiet glow. Another message buzzed. I almost didn't invite you. Thought it would be too forward. Evan smiled faintly. It was forward, but in the best way possible. Jenna sent a laughing emoji, then followed it with, honestly, I half expected you wouldn't show. Why? He typed. Because most people don't say yes to dinner with strangers, she wrote. Especially not the night before a holiday. Especially not at our messy house. Evan didn't answer right away. He set the cocoa down and thought about her words. About how different she was, unfiltered, warm, carrying her heart like it wasn't something to be hidden. He typed slowly. I was the one who almost didn't come. Not because I didn't want to, but because I wasn't sure I'd be enough. This time, the 3 dots stayed for several long seconds. Evan, she finally replied. You were exactly enough. Exactly right. You fit into our chaos like you belong there. He exhaled, feeling the truth of those words sink into him deeper than he expected. Jenna sent another message. Also, Caleb said you're officially part of the Non-Terrible Adults Club. It's a very exclusive membership, he snorted. High praise from a teenager. The conversation lingered. It shifted into sillier topics. Her disastrous attempt at baking brownies last week, his embarrassing fear of balloons as a kid, Pumpkin's dramatic personality. The exchange flowed naturally, like two people who had spent more than a handful of hours together. Then Jenna sent a photo. It was her brother Caleb, holding Pumpkin, both staring at the camera with equally unimpressed faces. Beneath it, she wrote, Pumpkin says he'll tolerate you. This is basically a marriage proposal in cat language. Evan laughed so loudly he startled himself. You're ridiculous, he typed. Takes one to know one, she shot back. He sat on the couch, scrolling through their messages, reading and rereading the small pieces of her he'd just been given. The honesty, the humor, the unexpected vulnerability. Then another message arrived, slower this time. Can I tell you something real? He straightened. Of course. I was nervous, she wrote. Really nervous. Because you're, well, you. And I'm me. He frowned slightly. I don't understand. You seem so put together, she replied. So calm and thoughtful. I wasn't sure you'd want to be around someone like me. I talk too much. I spill things. I panic over burnt toast. I'm a mess sometimes. He let those words settle, then typed, Jenna. Tonight was the first time in weeks that I didn't feel alone, because of you. Silence. Then, thank you. I needed that more than you know. Another pause. Are you sleeping? She asked. Not yet, he replied. Good. Because I left something in your cocoa, he stared at the cup suspiciously. What did you do to it? Relax, she typed. It's not poison. I stirred in a little extra cinnamon for luck. It's silly, but my mom says cinnamon brings warmth into the next day. I wanted tomorrow to feel warm for you. Words rose in his throat, something like gratitude, something like hope. But before he could type anything, another message arrived. Good night, Evan. Thanks for letting my weird little world be part of your night. Evan lay back on the couch, the rain tapping softly against the windows. The cocoa was nearly gone, the warmth settling into his hands, his chest, his thoughts. Tomorrow didn't feel empty. Tomorrow felt like it had a door slightly open, just enough to let light in. He looked at her final message one more time, then whispered into the quiet room, Good night, Jenna. Seattle's winter had a strange habit of mixing cold air with warm scents. Roasted chestnuts from street carts, vanilla drifting from small dessert shops, and the subtle hint of cinnamon from cafes that stayed open far too late. That evening, Evan walked toward a small corner shop called Melt and Maple, its neon sign flickering like it was shivering along with the weather. He checked his phone. On my way. Save me a seat. Jenna, Evan stepped inside, greeted by a rush of warmth and sweetness. Melt and Maple was tiny. Wooden tables, mismatched chairs, photos of vintage Seattle on the walls, and a glass display of winter special ice creams, labeled things like Toasted Marshmallow Dream and Winter Spice Velvet. He took a seat near the fogged window, watching the rain trace soft patterns on the glass. A moment later, the door opened and Jenna burst through, hood half off, hair wind-blown, cheeks flushed. "Why is the wind personally attacking me tonight?" she declared as she stomped her boots. "Is this revenge for all the times I complained it wasn't cold enough?" Evan laughed. "Maybe Mother Nature just missed you," she grinned. "Well, I'm not flattered." She slid into the seat across from him, tugging off her gloves. "Okay, I need something warm and sweet immediately, or I might turn into a decorative ice sculpture." "You sure about ice cream?" Evan teased. "It's warm ice cream," she corrected. "Totally different. Warm ice cream. Don't question the science," she said. "Just enjoy the magic." They walked to the counter. Jenna pointed enthusiastically at a flavor called Campfire Cream. "2 scoops of that, please, and extra melted marshmallow on top. Like dangerous amounts." Evan ordered Winter Spice Velvet, the server adding a swirl of warm caramel that made the entire shop smell like gingerbread. When they sat back down, Jenna held her cup like it was treasure. "Okay," she said, "I need to decompress. Today at work was chaos." "Worse than ski goggle guy?" Evan asked. She inhaled sharply. "Oh, way worse. Today we had the Great Olive Oil Disaster." He raised an eyebrow. "That sounds dramatic." "It was catastrophic." She leaned forward. "So, this guy ordered pasta but didn't want any oil on it. Zero. Like, aggressively anti-oil. I bring it out exactly how he wants it, but then he sneezes." Evan blinked. "That doesn't sound catastrophic." "You're right. The sneeze wasn't the issue." She lifted her spoon. "The issue was the bottle of olive oil sitting on the counter. His sneeze blew it over. It rolled. And then, crash. Oh no. Oh yes. Oil everywhere. The floor was an ice rink. The cook slipped. A server slipped. The bottle slipped again just to be extra. I tried to save the plate and somehow threw parsley across the room." Evan burst into laughter. "That sounds like a sitcom." "It was," Jenna sighed. "I'm pretty sure there's security footage of me doing a full split like a cartoon character." He kept laughing, the sound echoing softly in the tiny shop. Jenna scooped a bite of warm ice cream, sighing dramatically. "Okay, your turn. Tell me something about your day, or about your childhood, or an embarrassing story." "Actually, yes, definitely an embarrassing story." He tilted his head. "Are you always this demanding on dates?" "This is a date?" she teased. His heart skipped, just barely. "Well, isn't it?" She smiled softly. "Yeah, it is." He swallowed, warmth blooming somewhere deeper than the cocoa she gave him last night. "Fine," he said. "Embarrassing story. When I was 6, I tried to make my own kite. I was convinced I could fly it from the roof if I held it tight enough." "Oh no." "Oh yes," he said. "I jumped." "You jumped off the roof?" "A very small roof, like 3 steps up." "And did you fly?" He deadpanned. "No, I fell into a rose bush." Jenna slapped the table, howling. "That's incredible." "It hurt." "I'm sure it did, but it's still incredible." He shook his head. "Your turn." She tapped her spoon thoughtfully. "Okay, when I was 7, I tried to make cookies by myself, except I didn't know the difference between sugar and salt. My mom ate one to be supportive. She didn't speak to me for an hour because her entire face went numb." Evan laughed so hard he had to put his cup down. Jenna grinned, clearly proud of her victory. Then, mid-laugh, her spoon slipped from her fingers, bounced off the table, and splattered a drop of melted marshmallow onto her hand. "Ah!" She looked at the spot, then at Evan, who was already struggling not to laugh. She burst out giggling. "Gravity hates me." Her laughter was unrestrained, bright, honest, and warm enough to put every string of lights in Seattle to shame. And Evan felt something shift inside him. The sound tugged at a place he hadn't touched in years, a part of him that longed for simplicity, for joy without effort, for someone who made life lighter, someone like her. When her laughter finally calmed, she wiped the melted drop from her hand and caught him staring. "What?" she asked softly. "Nothing," he said. "Just, I didn't realize how much I missed this." "Missed what?" "Laughing," he said. "This much." Her expression softened, warmth filling her features. "Then we'll make up for lost time." They finished their ice cream slowly, talking about childhood traditions, winter pranks, pets they used to have, and the weird foods they hated. As the conversation wandered, the distance between them felt smaller, like the space across the table was shrinking inch by inch. When their cups were empty and the drizzle outside turned into a gentle mist, they stepped out of Melton Maple. The cold hit instantly, swirling around them, but neither moved away. Evan shoved his hands into his pockets. "I'm really glad you came tonight." Jenna laughed. "Please, I would never say no to warm ice cream, and besides..." She hesitated, then looked up at him with something shy and bright in her eyes. "I like being around you." His breath caught, not dramatically, just enough to notice. "I like being around you too," he said. A beat passed. Then Jenna stepped forward, not a big step, just close enough that he could see the flecks of silver in her irises, the way her breath formed tiny clouds in the cold air. She rose onto her toes, leaned in, and pressed a quick kiss to his cheek. Soft, warm, unexpected. A punctuation mark made of courage. A quiet exhale left him before he could stop it. Jenna stepped back, cheeks flushed. That was, just a little exclamation point. An exclamation point, he repeated, smiling. "Yeah." She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You know, for a good night." He nodded slowly. It was more than good. She smiled at him, small and soft and impossible not to feel. "Good night, Evan." "Good night, Jenna." She walked away first, boots tapping against the wet sidewalk, her silhouette glowing under the street lamp as the mist settled around her. Evan touched his cheek, still warm from where she'd kissed him. For the first time in a long time, the cold didn't reach him. The days that followed unfolded with a rhythm neither Evan nor Jenna had planned for, but both secretly hoped would continue. It started small, almost accidental, as if the city kept placing them in each other's paths. On Monday, they met at the waterfront. Evan had suggested a walk without overthinking it, and Jenna had said yes with a smile so bright the gray sky seemed to lighten. The air was sharp, the kind that made every breath feel clean. Ferries glided across the sound, their lights trembling on the water. "I swear the seagulls here have personal vendettas," Jenna announced as one swooped low. "One stole my sandwich last month." "Really?" "Right out of my hands. Zero remorse. Made eye contact while doing it." Evan laughed. "You live a dangerous life." "I really do." They walked until the sky blushed pink, and when Jenna's fingers brushed his, just barely, neither of them moved away. The next day they wandered Pike Place Market, weaving through the aroma of spices, tea, fresh citrus, and roasted nuts. Jenna insisted Evan try a tiny tea stall tucked between two buskers. "This one," she said, handing him a steaming cup. "Winter Blossom, my absolute favorite." He took a sip. "That's actually incredible." "I know," she said proudly. "My tea intuition is unmatched." They found a quiet corner near a flower vendor. Jenna pointed at a bouquet of soft pink tulips and said, "My mom loves those. They make her think of spring." Evan smiled. "You're close with your family." "Very," she said. "They're loud and messy, and half the time the house smells like burnt sugar because Caleb experiments with desserts he shouldn't. But they're my people." He felt something warm unfurling inside him. "I like being around them." Jenna looked at him with a surprised softness. "They like having you around too." That night, they watched a comedy at a small theater that only played old films. Jenna laughed so loudly, Evan forgot to be self-conscious. Every now and then, he'd look over at her, the way her eyes crinkled, the way she covered her mouth when she laughed too hard, and feel something tug in his chest. Something he hadn't let himself feel in a long time. By the end of the week, meeting her felt less like making plans and more like gravity, as if showing up in each other's days had become the default. Evan didn't question it. He didn't want to. One evening, as they sat on a bench overlooking the water, Jenna swung her legs gently and said, "Is it weird that it feels like we've known each other longer than this?" She gestured vaguely at the air between them. He shook his head. "It doesn't feel weird to me." "Really?" "Really," he said. "Sometimes you just meet someone and things fall into place." Jenna looked down at her hands. "Yeah, that's exactly what it feels like." Silence stretched between them, not heavy, not awkward, just full. Then Evan's phone buzzed. He checked the screen, and the shift in his expression was small but noticeable. Jenna straightened. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," he said slowly. "Just complicated." She waited. "It's my parents," Evan said. "They live in San Diego. I'm supposed to visit next week. It's part holiday, part family expectations." "You don't sound excited?" He laughed at him without humor. "My family is different from yours." "How different?" "Think less warm hugs, more cold questions about my future." Jenna winced. "Yikes." "They mean well," he added quickly, "but things have been tense the past few years. I didn't visit last Christmas, so now they're insisting." Jenna nodded. "Family can be messy, even the well-intentioned ones." Evan hesitated, then said, "I was thinking, maybe you'd like to come with me." The words left his mouth before he fully realized he had spoken them. Jenna froze. "Come with you? To San Diego? To meet your family?" "Yes," he said, trying not to sound nervous. "Only if you want to, no pressure." Jenna blinked rapidly. "Evan, we've only known each other." "I know," he said, "but these days with you, they've felt right. And I don't want this, whatever this is, to pause just because I have to go." She looked stunned, cheeks coloring from more than just the cold. "You really want me to come?" He nodded. "I do, and not because it would be convenient. Because I want you to be part of this week with me." Jenna pressed her lips together, eyes darting to the water, as if asking the waves for advice. "That's a big step," she whispered. "I know," Evan said honestly. "I'm not expecting this to be something serious overnight. I just know I like being with you. And I want my parents to see the person who made the past week the best one I've had in years." Jenna's breath caught. "They're going to judge me," she said. "They'll like you," Evan said softly. "Everyone does." She shook her head. "Not everyone. And your world, it's different from mine." Evan leaned closer. "Different doesn't mean incompatible." Her eyes flicked up to meet his. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Jenna let out a shaky laugh. "Wow, I did not wake up this morning expecting an invitation to meet someone's entire family." "Is that a no?" Evan asked carefully. "No," she said quickly. "No, it's a yes. I just need a minute to process the fact that I'm apparently brave today." He grinned. "I'm glad." She breathed out slowly. "San Diego. Okay, I can do San Diego. I mean, I've never been. Do they have good snacks?" Evan laughed. "I'll make sure they do." "Good," she said, recovering her playful tone. "I don't travel without snacks." The wind picked up suddenly, biting at their cheeks. Jenna shivered, pulling her thin jacket closer. Evan reached into his bag and pulled out a soft blue scarf. "Here," he said. "Oh, it's pretty," she said, touching the fabric. "It's warm," he said, "and Seattle decided to be dramatic today." She wrapped it around her neck and smiled. "Thank you." When she looked up at him again, something in her expression had shifted, something deeper, more certain. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's go to San Diego." Evan felt his chest loosen, then warm, then fill. "Yeah," he whispered. "Let's." The sky faded into shades of violet as they walked back toward the city, side by side, shoulders brushing, something unspoken settling comfortably between them. Whatever this was, it was growing, and neither of them wanted it to stop. The closer the car rolled toward the coast of San Diego, the more Jenna felt the air change. The sky opened wide, streaked in soft tangerine light, and the ocean shimmered like a sheet of hammered metal beneath the setting sun. Palm trees swayed lazily, their shadows stretching long over the street. When Evan's house finally appeared, Jenna forgot how to breathe. It wasn't just big, it was luminous. A modern, ocean-facing home with wide glass walls, pale stone columns, and soft lights that glowed like lanterns in the dusk. Waves crashed behind it, rhythmic and steady, as if the sea itself guarded the place. "Evan," Jenna whispered, "your family lives in architectural poetry." He laughed quietly. "It looks fancier than it feels. Inside, it's just messy people who love loud dinners." "That's the most intimidating description I've ever heard." Before he could respond, the front door burst open. "Evan!" a woman called, practically flying down the steps. Lydia Mercer, sun-kissed hair, warm eyes, flower smudge on her cheek, threw her arms around her son before he even reached the walkway. "You're actually home," she said, squeezing him so tightly he made a small choking sound. Heaven must have tilted. "Hi, Mom," he managed. Then Lydia turned to Jenna. "Are you... Oh, sweetheart, come here." Before Jenna could protest, Lydia pulled her into a hug so genuine, it felt like stepping into a blanket fresh from the dryer. "You must be Jenna. I'm so happy you came. You have no idea." Jenna blinked. Thank you. I wasn't sure if we'd be welcoming," Lydia finished. "Please, Evan hasn't brought anyone home in years. This is practically a holiday miracle." "Mom," Evan groaned. Too late. Another voice boomed from the doorway. "Is that her? The girl who finally got Evan to use vacation days?" A tall man with playful eyes and the same broad shoulders stepped outside. Miles, the older brother, grinned like someone who lived to stir chaos. "You must be Jenna," he said. "I'm Miles, professional older sibling and part-time menace." Jenna shook his hand with a laugh. "I already feel warned." "Oh, good," Miles said. "You're quick." A second figure appeared behind him. Ava, petite, glasses perched on her nose, holding a notebook like a shield. "I'm Ava," she said in a bright voice. "Family question machine. So, hi. I need to know everything about you, but I'll start with something simple. Coffee or tea?" Jenna blinked. Both?" "Perfect," Ava said, scribbling dramatically. "Balanced. We like balanced." "Come in, both of you," Lydia clapped. "Dinner's almost ready." Inside, the house felt less like an elegant museum and more like a lived-in home. Framed photos lined the shelves. Beach trips, birthday cakes, messy hair, and laughter frozen mid-moment. The interior smelled like roasted garlic and citrus. Evan's father, Graham, stood from the kitchen island, wiping his hands on a towel. His silver hair glowed under the pendant lights. "You must be Jenna," he said warmly. "I've heard good things." Jenna blushed. "I hope at least half of them are true." "Oh, they're true," Graham said. "Evan's been smiling more. That alone says a lot." "Dad," Evan muttered. Dinner was a whirlwind. Plates passed back and forth, interrupted stories, Miles teasing Ava about her investigations, Lydia insisting Jenna take more potatoes, and the soft crash of waves through the open patio doors. At one point, Ava leaned forward with an eager glint. "Jenna, tell us something embarrassing about yourself." "Ava," Miles warned, "use your inside voice." No, Lydia said. "I want to hear this too." Jenna swallowed. "Okay, but you can't judge me." "Oh, we definitely will," Miles said. "Fine," Jenna said, laughing nervously. "Once at the cafe, I tripped over my shoelace and sent a full tray of iced lattes straight into a VIP's lap." Ava gasped dramatically. "No." "Yes," Jenna said. "I thought my manager was going to faint." "What did the VIP do?" Graham asked, laughing already. He looked down at himself, completely soaked, and said, "Well, now I match the weather." The whole table erupted. Lydia nearly dropped her fork from laughing. "I need to meet this person." "Same," Ava said. "Anyone who responds to chaos with humor is my kind of human." Evan watched Jenna recount the story with an awe that tugged Jenna's stomach. The way she lit up his family, the way she blended into their messy warmth. It felt like something falling into place. After dinner, they moved to the patio. The ocean was a dark expanse now, moonlight shimmering on the waves. Music drifted from inside. Miles and Ava argued playfully over who was cheating at cards. Lydia wrapped blankets around everyone, and Graham lit citronella candles. As midnight approached, the family wandered down to the beach to join the crowds gathering for fireworks. Jenna walked beside Evan, their arms brushing softly. "I can't believe your family is so normal," she said. "Normal?" he repeated. "I mean that in the best way. They're warm, real. I expected formality and rules and, I don't know, fancy forks." Evan chuckled. "We use one kind of fork, the one that's clean." They reached the shoreline. The sand was cool beneath their feet, the breeze carrying the smell of salt and celebration. Fireworks technicians prepared on the pier. Jenna pulled her borrowed sweater closer. "Thank you for bringing me here. I'm glad you said yes," he replied. The countdown began faintly behind them. 10, 9... Evan turned to her fully, his expression suddenly softer, nervous at the edges. "Jenna," he said, "before the fireworks start, I need to say something." She blinked. "You're scaring me." "No," he whispered. "I hope this does the opposite." The fireworks started to warm the sky with a low rumble. "I love you," he said quietly. The words hit Jenna like a wave, gentle but unstoppable. Her breath caught as the first explosion of color lit the ocean in shimmering gold and violet. "I know it's only been a short time," Evan said, "but everything with you feels right. Effortless. Like I've finally found the place I'd been walking toward for years without even realizing it." Her eyes stung instantly. "And I don't want to guess anymore. I don't want to hide how I feel. I love you, Jenna, completely." For a second, all Jenna could hear was the ocean and her own heartbeat. Then she leaned closer and whispered, voice trembling, "Evan, I love you too." His inhale shook with relief. "You do?" "I do," she said, laughing through tears. "I've been terrified to admit it out loud. But I do." As fireworks burst above them, red, gold, green, white, Evan pulled her into his arms and kissed her. The world narrowed to warmth and light and the echo of waves. "Happy New Year," he whispered against her forehead. "Happy New Year," she said, smiling through tears. "To us." The flight back to Seattle landed in heavy gray clouds, the kind that always looked ready to burst into rain. But as Jenna stepped out of the terminal beside Evan, she felt lighter than she had in years. Warmth carried from a beach in San Diego, tucked somewhere in her chest. Seattle felt familiar again, but different now. Softer, more hopeful. Evan drove her home that first night, walking her to the porch while the winter wind whipped through her hair. Nora flung the door open before they even knocked. "There you two are," she exclaimed. "Come inside, it's freezing. Goodness, Jenna, your nose is red as a tomato." "Mom," Jenna groaned, but she was smiling. Nora hugged her daughter, then turned to Evan with a knowing look. "And you," she said, poking his shoulder. "Thank you for taking care of my girl." Evan flushed. "Honestly, I think she was taking care of me." From the living room, Caleb yelled, "Jenna, did you bring me anything? Did you see the ocean? Did you almost drown? Did—" "Caleb," Jenna cut in, laughing. "One question at a time." Evan lifted a small bag. "I did bring something." Caleb lit up. "For me? Don't get used to it," Evan joked, but the boy was already tearing into the gift, a model airplane kit. "This is so cool! Mom, look!" Caleb shouted before disappearing into his room. Nora, shaking her head fondly, mouthed a word to Jenna. "Keep her." And part of Jenna believed that too. Over the next weeks, something beautiful began to happen, something neither of them planned, but both of them welcomed. Evan became a regular in the small, slightly chaotic house in Rosewood District. After work, he often stopped by to help Caleb with homework. Math equations scattered on the table, Evan explaining calmly while Caleb listened as if Evan were a patient wizard. On weekends, he helped Nora fix the sagging hinge on the back door, then the loose gutter, then the creaky porch step. He never charged a dime. Nora paid him in banana bread. "You know," she said one afternoon while Evan adjusted the screen door, "you don't have to do all this." "I know," he replied, "but I like being here." Nora gave him a thoughtful smile. "We like having you here." Jenna watched from the yard as Evan tightened screws and brushed dust from his hands. A strange warmth washed over her, like watching someone belong without trying. And slowly, she became part of Evan's world too. His apartment, once a pristine, sterile place full of empty corners and untouched counters, began to change. Jenna didn't move in, not yet, but the space evolved as if making room for her. They reorganized his bookshelves, laughed while dusting old college trophies, threw out jars of expired spices he didn't know he owned. Jenna planted herbs on his windowsill, basil, rosemary, mint, and Evan watered them every morning like they were tiny green promises. They cooked together, messily, joyfully, Evan learning how not to chop vegetables, as if signing documents, Jenna learning that smoke alarms really do work. On Fridays, they watched movies in his living room, wrapped in blankets, passing snacks back and forth. On Sundays, they walked Pike Place Market under the hanging flowers and neon signs, sipping hot chai, brushing hands, smiling easily. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't grand. It was simply life, but transformed. Evan felt it first. One evening in late spring, he stood in his apartment doorway while Jenna hung her blue scarf, the one he'd given her that first week, on the small wooden rack beside his own coat. Sunlight streamed through the windows, warm and gold. Jenna's hair caught the light. Her soft humming filled the space. Basil leaves rustled on the sill. He realized in that quiet moment that his apartment no longer felt cold. It felt lived in. It felt like the beginning of a future. She turned and caught him staring. "What?" she asked, tucking hair behind her ear. "Nothing," he said. "Just, you look very at home." Her laughter came like a spark. "I've only been here for an hour." "That's not what I mean," he said softly. Her smile softened too. "Yeah, I feel it." Weeks passed. They found new rhythms, shopping for groceries together, helping Caleb build his model airplane, calling Lydia on video so she could check if Jenna is still treating my son well. Jenna's coworkers joked that she was glowing. Evan's team teased him about the mysterious woman who keeps making him smile at emails. Neither of them cared. 6 months after their trip to San Diego, Seattle bloomed. The air warmed, rain came lighter, cherry blossoms gathered in pink clouds above the sidewalks. One afternoon, Evan and Jenna took a walk through Gasworks Park. Kids flew kites on the hill. Dogs sprinted through the grass. The lake shimmered under the late sun. Jenna stretched her arms and sighed. "Everything feels soft this year." "Soft?" Evan echoed. "You know," she said, bumping his shoulder. "Not harsh, not rushed. Like life stopped shouting and just talks now." He looked at her profile, the way her eyes squinted at the sun. "I feel that too." "Really?" He nodded. "Before you, everything felt like a checklist. Tasks, deadlines, expectations. And I kept thinking if I just worked harder or earned more or achieved more, something inside me would change. Did it?" "No," he said honestly. "Not until you walked into that restaurant and made fun of my tie." Jenna burst out laughing. "It was crooked, and you fixed it anyway," he said. "That's when things began to make sense." She looked at him in a way that made the world slow down. "You know," she said quietly, "I used to think love was this big, dramatic thing that happened to other people, not people like me, not people with tiny kitchens and expired cereal and a cat named Pumpkin who hates everyone. He loves me," Evan said proudly. "He tolerates you." "Progress," he said. Her laughter faded into something soft. "But with you, I feel seen. Like every part of me matters, even the messy parts." He took her hand. "Every part of you does." They stood quietly for a moment, lake breeze brushing past them. Then Jenna whispered, almost to herself, "It feels like we're building something, you know?" "We are," Evan said. "Something real. Very real." "And maybe something big?" she asked, voice small. He squeezed her hand. "Yeah, something big." They walked again, steps matching, hearts calm and bright. By the time they returned to Evan's apartment, the sun was low, casting long golden stripes across the floor. Jenna hung her blue scarf on the rack, smoothing it with gentle fingers. Evan watched her. Every day she seemed to settle deeper into his life. And every day he realized he couldn't imagine waking up without her, somewhere near. 6 months. Not long in the eyes of the world. But for them, it was enough to know the truth. Something had matured, solidified, quietly reached its moment. And for the first time, Evan knew exactly what he needed to do next. The evening air over downtown Seattle shimmered with a soft drizzle, the kind that made streetlights glow like halos. Jenna didn't know where they were going. Evan had simply said, "Dress nice, bring your scarf, and trust me." She did trust him, more than she'd trusted anyone. They turned a corner, and Jenna stopped. Luca's Hearth, the small Italian restaurant where she had once walked, between crowded tables, balancing trays, and overthinking every step. The place where Evan had sat alone for 90 minutes, believing the worst about himself. The place where she had decided, half on impulse, half on instinct, not to let a sad stranger go home feeling invisible. Tonight, the windows were glowing warmly, but something was different. There were no customers inside. The tables were cleared, candles flickering gently, fairy lights draped across the beams like strands of soft gold. The faint sound of piano drifted through the door. Jenna blinked. "Evan, why does it look like we're about to break into a wedding reception?" He squeezed her hand. "Because I rented it." "You what?" "Come on," he said, smiling in a way that made her forget the rain. He led her inside. The air was fragrant with rosemary and baked parmesan, a scent that hit her with a wave of nostalgia so strong she felt it in her chest. Every table had been pushed aside except one, set near the window, candles floating in small glass bowls. 2 plates waiting as if the evening had been expecting them. Jenna whispered, "Evan, this is beautiful." "It's where everything started," he said. "I thought it deserved a chapter of its own." She moved deeper into the room, her fingers brushing the edge of the table she used to wipe down every night. "Do you remember that first night?" she asked softly. "I remember walking in thinking I'd made a mistake," he said, then sitting there for 90 minutes thinking I was the mistake. Jenna looked at him. "You never were." "I know that now," he said, stepping closer. "Because of you." Her breath caught. He guided her to the table, pulled her chair out for her, something he hadn't done the first time, when he'd been too nervous even to meet her eyes. Tonight, he met them fully, like he'd spent months learning their language. Dinner arrived, steaming pasta, warm bread, the exact dishes they had shared the night he told her his heart had been bruised too many times. Their old waiter, Marco, carried the plates with a grin. "For the couple who made my Tuesday nights interesting," he winked before disappearing again. Jenna laughed. "He remembers us." "Hard not to," Evan said. They ate slowly, savoring each bite like a memory. Between courses, Evan told stories she didn't know, about learning to cook pasta with his dad, about the time Caleb convinced him to play a video game, and he lost disastrously, about how Lydia texted him every morning asking if he'd proposed. Yet, Jenna nearly choked. "She said that?" "Every day," he nodded, "sometimes twice." "She's relentless." "She's excited," he said. "They all are." "About what?" she asked, a flutter rising in her chest. "You'll see." He took her hand across the table, thumb brushing her knuckles. The candles glowed between them. "These past 6 months," he began, voice lower now, gentler, "have been the happiest I can remember." Jenna felt her pulse quicken. "I didn't know how empty my life had become until you walked into it," he continued. "I didn't know what home could feel like until I spent evenings with your family. I didn't know I could laugh this much, or breathe this easily, or wake up excited for the day." She swallowed hard, throat tight. "You've made me braver," he said, "kinder, softer in the best way. You taught me that love doesn't need to be complicated or painful. It can be warm and messy and ordinary, and still the most extraordinary part of your life." Her eyes shimmered. "I want to build that kind of life with you," he whispered. "A life where we fix porch hinges and help Caleb with homework and buy too many herbs for the windowsill. A life where your scarf always hangs next to my coat. A life where you never wonder if you matter, because you'll always know that you do." Jenna pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. Evan stood slowly, walked around the table, and reached into his pocket. When he knelt, Jenna stopped breathing. "Evan?" He opened a small velvet box. Inside lay a silver ring, set with a deep blue stone, clear, bright, the color of a Seattle winter sky reflected on water. "I chose the stone," he said quietly, "because it looks like home, like the city we fell in love in, like the night you first made me laugh when I thought I had forgotten how." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Jenna," he said, voice steady despite the way his hands trembled, "would you make me the luckiest man in this city and spend the rest of your life with me?" She covered her face with both hands, shoulders shaking. "Yes," she managed, voice breaking. "Yes, Evan. Of course I will." He let out a breath that sounded like relief and joy tangled together, slipped the ring onto her finger, and rose to pull her into his arms. She kissed him through tears, through laughter, through the spark of something that felt like the rest of her life clicking softly into place. Then, a sudden burst of voices. "Finally!" Jenna jumped as the restaurant doors swung wide. Miles stumbled in carrying a camera. Ava held sparklers she clearly wasn't supposed to light indoors. Lydia was already crying. Graham brought cupcakes. Nora rushed forward next, nearly knocking Jenna off her feet with a hug. "My baby!" she sobbed. "Let me see the ring. Oh my goodness, Evan, you absolute treasure of a man." Caleb darted past her. "Did you propose? Did she say yes? Can I see? Can I touch it? Can we have cake now?" Pumpkin the cat trotted in behind Nora, as if he owned the place. Jenna gasped, laughing through tears. "You invited everyone?" Evan slipped his arm around her waist, grinning. "Of course I did. I wanted the people who love you, and love us, to be here." The little restaurant filled with cheers and camera flashes, laughter bouncing off the wooden beams, love blooming in every corner. Jenna looked at Evan, her voice quiet amid the noise. "I met you here when your heart was breaking," she whispered. "I never imagined this is where we'd end up." Evan brushed a tear from her cheek. "That night was the end of something painful," he said. Tonight is the beginning of everything else. She smiled, radiant, trembling, completely overwhelmed. And as their families crowded around them, hugging, laughing, celebrating, Jenna realized something simple and certain. She was exactly where she was meant to be.